The lecture hall smelled like recycled air and desperation, which I suppose was fitting for Galactic History 301. Professor Veldar droned on about the Treaty of Andromeda, his 3 vocal cords creating a harmony that would have been soothing if the content wasn't so mind-numbingly dull. I was a Kilrathi exchange student, which meant I'd traveled 47 light years just to fall asleep in class like everyone else. Except for her. Maya Torres sat 3 rows ahead, perfectly still, her vertebrae stacked in that distinctly human way that always looked vaguely threatening. She was the only Deathworlder in our section, maybe the only one on campus, and she'd spent the entire semester being unreasonably polite about it. Please. Thank you. Excuse me while I casually lift furniture that requires 6 of us to move. That sort of thing. The treaty established parameters for conflict resolution that we still utilize today. Professor Veldar warbled, and I watched Maya's shoulders rise and fall with what I'd learned to recognize as a sigh. Humans did that a lot. Apparently living on a nightmare planet where everything wanted to kill you meant you developed opinions about bureaucratic peace accords. That's when the alarm started. Not the fire drill alarm, which sang in pleasant B-flat. Not the atmospheric failure alarm, which was more of a gentle suggestion that you might want to find oxygen. This was the invasion alarm, and it sounded like someone was murdering a synthesizer with a plasma torch. Red emergency lighting flooded the hall, turning Maya's brown skin an eerie crimson. All students remain calm and proceed to the nearest shelter, the automated system announced in 4 languages, which seemed optimistic given that half the class was already screaming. Maya didn't scream. She didn't even stand up immediately. She just tilted her head, listening, and I saw her pupils dilate until her eyes looked almost black. Then she turned to look at the entrance, and something about the way she moved made my survival instinct start screaming louder than my classmates. Kelvin, she said to the Arconian kid next to her, her voice unnaturally calm. Get under your desk. Now. What? Why would I do that when we need to evacuate? The doors exploded inward. I mean that literally. They didn't open. They exploded, torn off their magnetic locks by something that looked like it had been designed by a committee whose only directive was make it scary. 12 legs for arms, mandibles that clicked, and dripped something that definitely wasn't saliva. Krethix shock troops, and, judging by the plasma rifles integrated into their carapaces, they weren't here to negotiate. The first burst of plasma fire carved through the air where Professor Veldar's head had been approximately half a second earlier. He dropped behind his podium with surprising agility for someone who looked like an elderly jellyfish in a suit. Maya stood up. She didn't jump up or leap into action or any of those dramatic things. She just stood, and in the half second it took her to rise to her full height, I watched her entire body language transform. The polite exchange student evaporated, replaced by something that made the Krethix hesitate mid-stride. Bad choice, she said quietly. Then she grabbed the edges of her desk, synthetic wood and steel designed to support maybe 200 pounds of weight and equipment, and ripped it in half. The sound was incredible, like someone tearing paper, if paper could scream. She didn't strain, didn't grunt, just applied force until molecular bonds gave up and accepted their fate. Splinters and metal fragments scattered across the floor. The nearest Krethix soldier fired. Maya moved, and I couldn't even track it properly. One moment she was standing there holding 2 halves of a desk. The next she was 3 meters to the left, and the plasma bolt was turning the wall behind her in a molten slag. She threw the first half of the desk like a discus, because apparently on Earth they practice throwing heavy objects for fun. It caught the Krethix across what I assumed was its thorax, and the crack of chitin breaking echoed through the hall. The soldier went down hard, sliding across the floor in a spray of blue blood and broken armor. The other 11 soldiers paused, just for a moment, just long enough for their tactical processors to recalculate the threat assessment, just long enough for me to see what fear looked like on faces designed for nightmares. Maya smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of something that evolved as an apex predator that spent millions of years learning to hunt in packs and throw rocks with enough accuracy to kill from a distance. The smile of a species that looked at the food chain and decided it was more of a suggestion. "Class dismissed," she said, her voice carrying that distinctly human quality of finding humor in absolutely inappropriate situations. Then she charged, still holding the other half of the desk like a battering ram, and the real chaos began. The thing about humans that nobody tells you in the xenobiology textbooks is that they make noise when they fight. Not on-dog screams, exactly. More like this continuous stream of verbal aggression mixed with what I can only describe as athletic commentary. Maya was no exception. "You picked the wrong school," she grunted, slamming the desk fragment into another Krethix soldier's midsection with enough force to crack its combat plating. The soldier folded like cheap origami, and Maya pivoted, using the momentum to swing at the next one. "We have midterms next week." I studied. 3 soldiers tried to flank her, their tactical training evident in the coordinated approach. Maya saw them coming, dropped into a crouch that should have been impossible for a biped, and swept the legs out from under the nearest one with a kick that sounded like a small explosion. The Krethix hit the ground, and she was already moving, driving her improvised weapon down onto its weapon arm before it could aim. "Kelvin, you still under that desk?" she called out, not even breathing hard. "Yes," came the terrified response from somewhere behind the wreckage. "Good. Stay there. This gets messy." A plasma bolt grazed her shoulder, burning through her uniform jacket and probably some skin underneath. She hissed, jerked back. I watched her face do something complicated. Pain, yes, but also calculation. She touched the burn with her free hand, looked at the char marks, then looked at the soldier who'd shot her. "Okay," she said, and her voice dropped about 6 registers. "Now I'm annoyed. What happened next violated about 17 laws of physics that I was aware of." She threw what remained of her desk, not at a soldier, but at the ceiling light fixture directly above them. The impact shattered the panel, raining sparks and broken plastic down on 3 Krethix simultaneously. In the half-second they were distracted, Maya closed the distance, moving faster than I'd ever seen her move in the campus gymnasium. She grabbed the nearest soldier's plasma rifle, didn't even try to take it away, just redirected the barrel while simultaneously driving her knee into what I hoped wasn't its reproductive organs. The rifle discharged into another soldier, blue energy tearing through chitin like it was tissue paper. Maya yanked the weapon free with a twist that broke at least 2 of the soldier's arms, spun it around, and fired 3 shots so quickly they sounded like one continuous blast. 3 more soldiers dropped, their armor smoking and integrity fields failing with pathetic little whines. That left 5. They spread out, professional now, calculating. Their mandibles clicked in what I'd learned was Krethix tactical communication. They were calling for backup, probably, reporting that the supposedly harmless Deathworlder student was systematically dismantling their assault team with furniture and attitude. Professor Veldar chose that moment to activate the emergency barriers. Transparent aluminum walls slammed down from the ceiling, dividing the lecture hall into sections. Unfortunately, his timing was terrible because it cut off Maya's escape route and trapped her with 4 of the remaining soldiers while separating the 5th one on our side with the rest of the class. "Really, Professor?" Maya shouted, diving behind the remains of a lab station as plasma fire erupted again. Really helpful timing. The isolated Krethix on our side turned toward us cowering students, and I felt my internal organs try to exit through my skin. But before it could fire, a desk chair flew across the room, thrown by a 4-armed Vexian student whose name I didn't know. It bounced harmlessly off the soldier's armor, but it bought us 3 seconds. 3 seconds for Maya to shoot through the transparent barrier. The plasma rifle in her hands hummed once, a spike of energy so bright I had to close my secondary eyelids. The bolt punched through the supposedly impenetrable barrier like it was made of soap bubbles, cut the Krethix soldier center mass, and converted it into its component atoms with extreme prejudice. Transparent aluminum is rated for small arms fire. Maya called out, her voice weirdly cheerful despite the combat situation. Military-grade plasma rifles are not small arms. Science is fun. She was insane, absolutely insane, and I was developing a very confusing emotional response that I'd later realize was a combination of terror and admiration. The remaining 4 soldiers made their final mistake by charging her position simultaneously. Maya dropped the rifle, which was apparently overheating, grabbed a piece of broken desk support beam, and met them head-on. The next 15 seconds were a blur of movement that my eyes couldn't properly track. Humans have fast-twitch muscle fibers, I remember from class, evolved for pursuit, predation, and tool use. Tool use, as it turned out, included beating armed soldiers with a metal rod. When it was over, Maya stood in the center of the lecture hall, surrounded by unconscious or groaning Krethix soldiers, breathing hard but still upright. Her uniform was torn, blood seeped from the plasma burn on her shoulder, and she had what looked like blue Krethix blood spattered across her face. She wiped it off with the back of her hand, grimaced at the taste that probably got in her mouth, and looked around at all of us, staring from behind various pieces of cover. "So," she said, her chest heaving, "does anyone know if this counts as an excused absence? Or should I email the registrar?" The emergency services arrived 6 minutes later, which was apparently fast by station standards. They found Maya sitting on an overturned desk, still holding the metal rod, giving her statement to a very confused security officer while the rest of us slowly emerged from hiding. The captain of the guard approached her carefully, like you might approach a malfunctioning explosive device. "Miss Torres, that was either the bravest or the most reckless thing I've witnessed in 30 years of service." Maya shrugged, then winced because apparently adrenaline was wearing off and pain was remembering to exist. "I just really hate interruptions during class. Plus, survival instinct. We're kind of big on that back home." As they led her away from medical treatment and about 15 hours of debriefing, I heard her mutter something under her breath. "Wait until they find out humans are considered the calm ones on Earth." And that's when I decided that everything I'd ever learned about Deathworlders was absolutely, terrifyingly inadequate. So what did you think? Did this story surprise you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this sci-fi story, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing science fiction stories every week. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.